Today, we're diving into something that most people have experienced at least once in their lifetime, and that is the Progress Plateau. Whether you're trying to improve your health, learn a new skill, or just improve something in your life in general, you've probably hit that wall or just that annoying phase where you're no longer reaping the same benefits or the same rewarding feelings that you used to receive. Being in that place
sucks,
especially when you relapse. And we'll get into that, but that can be either literally or figuratively. But don't worry, all hope is not lost at all. We're gonna break it down so that we're gonna figure out how to push through it, past it, so that you can finally escape the vicious cycle. When we're talking about the Progress Plateau, for the purpose of this video, we're talking mostly about those situations where you've decided to level up in life. Maybe you're deciding to take care of your health a little bit more, or maybe you're also just trying to heal emotionally. You've decided to start healing emotionally from some past trauma and wounds. But this can also apply to other things, like starting a new job, learning a new skill, or even moving to a new place, a whole new place with a new environment. Basically, it can apply to any time you bring something new, positive, and somewhat exciting to your life, and that you're quite hopeful about the future possibilities that this change entails. Let's talk about what the Progress Plateau actually is. First, there's the beloved honeymoon phase. When we first introduce a positive change into our life, we experience what we might call the honeymoon phase, which truly feels like some sort of thrill or high even. This high naturally comes with the sense of novelty and is fueled by motivation, excitement, and the feeling of infinite potential upon opening up ourselves to a whole new world full of endless possibilities and a lot of new potential versions of ourselves. It all feels very hopeful, which obviously feels amazing and very blissful. Also, at this stage, what helps a lot is that most of what you experience and learn is still quite easy and fun and low stakes. Unfortunately, while motivation and excitement feel great, they are certainly not a reliable source for lasting change and success. A while back, I saw this animation that portrayed this super well, and it portrayed motivation as this flame that burned stronger than anything else, but that also burned out and got extinguished faster than anyone else. While the other flame, which goes with persistence, patience, discipline, and all these fun things, that flame burned less bright, but it never burned out. As such, when our beloved novelty wears off, we enter what we call the post-honeymoon phase or the Progress Plateau. In the Progress Plateau, everything feels dull, empty, gray, and quite hopeless. The actual progress that you're making at that point is so small and it feels so insignificant, unnoticeable, unrewarding that it pretty much feels like you're making no progress at all, especially compared to the honeymoon phase. And it really feels like you're no longer in an upwards trajectory, but rather in a stagnant one, thus the name plateau. This is often when we lose hope and we start self-sabotaging, either by giving up completely and or falling back into depression and or sometimes relapse into bad habits, or even worse, sometimes addictions or other forms of escapism. And actually, one of the main subconscious reasons why we do this Other than the fact that with self-sabotage, it's because you want to retain a sense of control so that you can decide to give up before life tells you that it's a failure. The other main subconscious reason why you would self-sabotage, give up, or worse, relapse is actually because that way, if you go back to rock bottom, you can experience the honeymoon phase again. But that's not an actual solution. It's a complete illusion. It keeps you stuck in a vicious cycle, and it keeps you stuck in the initial stages of any positive change that you want to bring into your life. So it goes honeymoon phase, progress plateau, you relapse, honeymoon phase, progress plateau, you relapse. And so you never get past the progress plateau back onto your route where you're actually going to achieve success in this mission that you have, whatever goal it is. You're pretty much stuck in a hamster wheel at this point. So the question is, how do we get past the progress plateau even though we can't see past the progress plateau? How do you push through even though you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel and you're just walking in the dark? Before we get to the practical solutions, there is a very important reminder that is often very, very underrated. And I know that from personal experience. And that is to remind yourself, actively remind yourself how far you've come. I know, it's like eye roll. I used to eye roll at this stuff all the time, especially because when you're in the progress plateau, you feel all those icky feelings. You have a mirror. All your insecurities are being reflected to you stronger and bigger than ever. So the last thing you want to do in that moment is be kind to yourself. It kind of feels like you're just giving yourself some undeserved participation trophy. But the truth is, and I promise I am the living proof of this, by taking a couple of minutes here and there to remind yourself, and this could be you lying down and thinking about it. This can be you talking to yourself in the mirror. I have a friend who does that. Me personally, I like to write, but it can really be anything you want. And just take that time to remind yourself how far you've come between the moment zero when you hadn't even embarked upon the journey and now. Just remind yourself. And the actual effect of that is that by doing that, after having done that, it won't solve things completely. We're going to get to that with the practical solutions. But what it will do in that moment is lower the level of distress that you're feeling at that moment. And by proxy, the state of emergency that you are in, where you feel very overwhelmed and your nervous system is probably not in the best place, and you're prone to impulsive decisions such as giving up, self-sabotaging, relapsing, and all of that. Because with a lot of self-sabotaging and self-destructive practices, they're made in states where you're feeling high distress, and they're made on impulse. A lot of these very self-destructive decisions that often have terrible consequences, if something had come in the way and to help just get from that high state of urgency, overwhelm, to just not feeling good, but on a more bearable, functional level, that would have meant the world. So do not undervalue the importance of these little things. These things, you're not going to feel it necessarily, and they're not going to be as life-changing and intense, but overall they add up, and you're going to look back and be like, whoa, these have actually saved my life in the long term. It's the little things, the tiny things that you keep doing. It's the bricks, each individual brick that you lay out to build the house. So remind yourself how far you've come and that you've actually made tangible progress from the start to now. Yeah, you're in a slump, and yeah, it feels like shit. And if you just push through, knowing that everybody goes through the same thing and that pain is a part of life and slumps are a part of life, there's going to be a time in the future eventually where you're going to feel better. and you're going to feel so proud, and nobody's ever going to be able to tell you shit because you did that. Now onto the practical solutions. So the first major action that you need to take to escape the progress plateau and the vicious cycle, the hamster wheel, is to switch things up. As paradoxical as it sounds, what this entails is for you to seek discomfort. And why would you do that? To escape the auto mode, whereby the tasks that you're completing now feel very automatic and they feel boring and unfulfilling. And they make you feel like it's a feeling, obviously, but they make you feel like you're not making any progress, even though the tasks that you're completing are still very beneficial objectively. Because as humans full of perceptions, cognitive biases, cultural influences, belief systems, traditions, emotions, traumas, experiences, one thing is for sure, and that is that we are not objective beings. So we need to kind of trick ourselves to maintain this perceived feeling of novelty, challenge, fulfillment, and progress so that we can actually maintain an objective one, a real one. So you can do this in so many different ways. You can do this by changing the environment. So you can do this by trying to do your tasks in different environments. You can do this by kind of changing the way that you're performing the tasks. Try to diversify that by diversifying the things that you use to the tools that you use and the means that you use to the material that you use to perform these tasks. Obviously, this is really going to be dependent on your situation and what this new change in your life is. But really, get all your creative juices flowing. There's no limit. And also, maybe don't try to look too much at whatever other people are doing. You can for inspiration, but then don't hesitate to tweak it and to really adapt it to you. So whatever sounds good and then actually feels good is what is going to last for you. Just make sure to focus on something that is quite unfamiliar to you and that also doesn't personally feel like a hassle or a bit of a bore. An extra tip regarding this practical solution of switching it up is gamification. What might really help you is to gamify this whole process. And what I mean by that is, in a lot of games, video games I'm thinking of in this moment, essentially, you keep playing the game and you keep feeling like everything is changing about the game. But the truth is that you're just changing the map that you're in. You're going to another world where maybe in the first map you were in a jungle setting, and then the second map you're going to be in a more of a desert setting, desertic. Also, maybe at every level you get new powers and you get new tools. But essentially, if you think about it, you're still playing the same game and you still have to do the same things, but you never get bored of it thanks to all these little changes. I think if you approach your task, once you get to the progress plateau, you really make an effort to try to gamify the process in that way, I think it's going to help you a lot. A huge added benefit of this whole switching it up practical solution is that it's going to create new neural pathways in your brain, which is great for your brain.
We love that.
And also you're going to become a more versatile person, which is needed in today's world more than ever. And I'm going to repeat this till the day I die. Always stay open to learning something new in any situation. You don't have to go into every situation by saying, oh, here, I'm going to learn something. But just stay open to that possibility, because you never know when some insignificant thing that you've experienced and learned through one experience and situation is going to be relevant to you in a whole other situation in the future that has nothing to do with it. I promise you this happens all the time. If you haven't, you probably already noticed, but that's why always stay open to that possibility. And switching it up is only going to make you learn that many more new things. The less boundaries you see between all your experiences, the more your potential will grow. In this practical solution, I would like to introduce the idea of a healthy relapse. This entails taking a momentary, perceived, tiny step back from the thing that you're doing in the present and that you're a little bit sick of, to give yourself a mini honeymoon phase again to reignite that excitement within you. Contrary to a negative relapse, this does not entail you giving up fully or using any form of escapism that is not beneficial or, even worse, harmful to you. I will leave that up to your interpretation. This is just you slowing down and implementing that perspective shift whereby you understand that this is a marathon and not a 100-meter race. Your main priority is to not give up completely. So for that to be accomplished at all costs, smaller sacrifices need to be made, such as slowing down a little bit. With this main priority of not giving up completely and getting out of the progress plateau, what you're going to do now is add some extra goals in your life. These goals, challenges, whatever you want to call them, they can be big and or small, but just make sure that you include goals that are smaller. And what I mean by that is that are achievable in the short term, so that they give you frequent little boosts of rewarding feelings along your journey to accomplishing the bigger goals. This can be yoga and meditation. I'm just thinking that because these two in particular would really help with whatever you're feeling in the progress plateau. But if that doesn't sound good to you, that's totally fine. And you can just pick from thousands, hundreds of thousands of skills and cool little things that you can learn and experience with in life through a friend or books or tutorials. And it can be physical, it can be mental, it can be artistic, it can be more DIY, it can really be anything. It can even be you deciding that you're going to read this book that's a little bit challenging and decide to read 10 pages every 2 days. I decided to do that recently, so that's why I'm putting it there. These things will provide you with frequent little bursts of satisfaction and confidence, which will help you push through, weather the storm, and get past the progress plateau. The reason being because you're always going to have something to feel good about every single day thanks to these. And don't worry, people often say that less is more, and that's true. But in this particular case, more is definitely more. The fulfillment you will feel upon the completion of every little small goal will serve as fuel for the completion of the bigger ones. And I just realized that after a while that it's actually in our DNA. We think that we should not put too much on our plate. And that is true for certain things. If you put too many really hard things on your plate, that's just not going to work out. But other than that, as a species, we thrive upon the completion of challenges, big and small. For example, a big reason why a lot of people's brains deteriorate with age, after a certain age especially, is because they're doing the same thing every day in the same manner, in the same places. That's really bad for you. So yes, in this particular case, more is more. As always, and as much as we hate hearing that when we're in the thick of it, difficult moments in life are always, always, always an opportunity to learn and grow. The progress plateau being one of them. What you're going to do here is slowly but surely, patiently, and with lots of love, explore all the negative thoughts and feelings that are going to come up once you reach the progress plateau. And there's going to be a lot, which is the reason why people also use escapism
Escapism,
self-sabotage, etc. Because when you're in the progress plateau, that's really when you have this mirror in front of you reflecting very brightly and in a magnified manner all of your insecurities and your darkest thoughts about yourself and the more pessimistic thoughts about life. So really listen to everything that comes up during that time, all the thoughts and feelings, listen to them, meditate on them, or if you're like me, write them down, whatever feels good to you. Just make sure not to judge them. Now, there's a thin line between not judging something and being in denial and denying what you feel. You are totally allowed to feel and think that these thoughts and feelings that are coming are unpleasant and ugly. But the main thing you need to remind yourself here is that it's not you that's a bad person. It's not you that's ugly. What's ugly are those thoughts and feelings, and you are not your thoughts and feelings. As hard as it is to truly grasp that is the truth, and the best people on this planet have ugly thoughts and feelings as well. Shadow work is very hard. It's a lifelong process, but it will always lead you to a place of greater humility and compassion for yourself, which then will lead you to greater humility and compassion for everyone around you. I'm going to leave you here today. When you're stuck in the progress plateau, remember, it's just a phase. It's just a phase. Everybody goes through this phase, and it's just a phase. And there are ways to push through it. Give yourself all the time you need. Reflect on how far you've come, switch things up, add a bunch of new little goals that seem fun and lighter than what you're going through. And lastly, do some shadow work full of love and compassion. The more simultaneously honest and compassionate you are in life, the easier things will go, always. You will always go through hardship, but because there will be much less resistance, you'll feel the world of a difference. And by compassionate, I certainly don't mean that you need to like all of the things about yourself, but one thing you need to do is love them unconditionally, just like you do with the people you love in your life. If you found anything helpful in this video, I would love for you to subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. And also, I'm a really visual person. And so if any of you are as well, what I did is that I summarized everything in this video and I wrote a blog post. I also did that with my previous videos. And so you can find all of those in the description. There will be the link to my blog, which is called Not So Obvious. So yeah, you can check that out if it helps you to see something in written form to really revise and remember and understand it fully, which is kind of the case with me. All right, that's all for today. You got this, and see you next time.